Standing in that school corridor, I never imagined that I would silently love one person while another would silently love me. Two pairs of eyes, two feelings, and in the middle stood only me. One decision changed my entire school life. Today I'm going to tell that story, my school love story, which is still etched in my heart. I am Liam. They say love from school days never gets old, only the people grow up. Now, after so long, when I look back, I realize the strangest, most beautiful, and bittersweet story of my life began in that school corridor. I was in ninth grade then. A new session had just started with the smell of new books all around, new notebooks, and some new faces. I was always the quiet type. I used to sit on the last bench in class so no one would notice me too much, but that day was different. As soon as I entered the class on the first day, my eyes stopped on someone. She was sitting by the window. Sunlight was falling on her face through the window, and she was writing something in her notebook with full attention. I don't know why, but in that moment I felt like I had seen her somewhere before, yet I never had. Throughout the whole class that day, I couldn't focus on my studies. My eyes kept drifting toward her. I kept telling myself, it's not right to stare like this, but the heart doesn't listen. As days passed, I slowly realized that I had started to like her. There was no big reason. Her smile, the way she spoke, her easy way of mixing with friends, everything about her made her special to me. But I never had the courage to talk to her directly. I rarely talked to anyone in class unless it was necessary. I just looked at her from a distance and created thousands of stories in my mind. Around that time, another strange thing happened in my life. One day during lunch break, I was standing alone in the corridor. Suddenly, someone called from behind, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" I turned around and saw another classmate standing there. She was usually very quiet, just like me. Surprised, I said, "Yes, tell me." After hesitating a little, she asked, "Do you always stay alone?" Hearing the question, I smiled a little and said, "Maybe." I'm used to it. After that day, she often came to talk to me. At first, it was simple things, studies, joking about teachers, exam stress. Slowly, we became good friends. I noticed that she listened to me very carefully. I even told her small things that I never shared with anyone. Talking to her gave me a kind of peace. But in a corner of my heart, there was always someone else, the one I liked from afar. One afternoon after school, we were walking side by side. Suddenly, she stopped. Surprised, I asked, "What happened?" After staying silent for a moment, she said, "I want to tell you something, but you won't get angry, right?" My heart suddenly skipped a beat. I said, "No, tell me." Very softly, she said, "I like you, I have for a long time." For a moment, everything around me seemed to stop. I couldn't say anything. A thousand thoughts were running through my head. On one side was someone who cared for me so much and listened to everything I said. On the other side was the person I had silently fallen in love with. I couldn't give any answer that day. I just said, "Give me some time." After going home that night, I couldn't sleep at all. I kept thinking, am I being selfish? Someone is loving me with so much feeling and I'm thinking about someone else. The next day at school, the moment I saw the person I had feelings for, I realized my feelings were still the same. She was smiling and talking with her friends, and I was watching from a distance. Just then, the one who had confessed her feelings came and stood beside me. She was trying to act normal, but there was a strange weight in her eyes, a wait for my answer. My chest started to feel heavy. I could understand that I had to make a decision. But that decision wasn't just mine, it was tied to two other hearts. And I didn't know which direction my one decision would take all of our lives. The next few days felt very strange. Whenever I went to school, my mind was always in conflict. On one hand, I knew that the person who loved me had come with genuine feelings, and on the other hand, I was still quietly fascinated by the person I had fallen for from afar. I talked less with my friends. I kept thinking to myself, had I ever given anyone this much importance? No, I truly knew that the warmth and love in her eyes were meant only for me. But the other person's smile, the way she talked, and something strange in her eyes kept holding me back. One day during lunch break, the three of us were standing in the corridor. Sitting quietly, laughing and playing, everything was happening at once. Suddenly, I felt both of their gazes turned toward me. My heart started to tremble. She asked me, "Shall we sit together after lunch today?" I didn't say anything, just nodded. She understood that I was hesitant. Then she smiled and said, "It's okay, you can take your time." I won't say anything. I felt a bit relieved, but my mind was still restless. While sitting in the afternoon class, I noticed that the person I liked from a distance kept looking toward me. But she never said anything directly. She just smiled lightly and looked my way. At that moment, I realized for the first time that love is not just a feeling. Sometimes it is understanding, empathy, and small acts of sacrifice in quiet moments. One day I was sitting on the school veranda with a cup of tea. A cold breeze was blowing outside. Suddenly she came and sat beside me. We sat there silently. For a few minutes we didn't say anything, just exchanged glances. She suddenly said, "I know you're confused. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable." Tears came to my eyes. I realized that she truly understood me. I finally spoke my heart. I said, I want us to love each other, but I still have another feeling in my heart." Even in silence, she understood. Then softly she said, "I understand. I don't want you to feel pressured about this. Just remember, I'll always be by your side." After that day, our relationship slowly grew deeper. We supported each other in small moments during class, at lunch, and on the school playground. We smiled at each other's little joys and shared our sorrows. But the sweetest moments of school life were when we were together, just the two of us. No words were needed. Understanding through our eyes, small smiles, and gentle touches told a secret story between us. One day the teachers held an exam in our class. As soon as I started the test, I realized I had never sat for an exam with so many emotions before. My mind was flying, my heart was shaking. But when our eyes met, I suddenly felt calm. After the exam, we met outside. She suddenly said, "Come on, let's walk in the schoolyard today." We walked without holding hands. The sound of leaves in the air, the distant laughter of friends, everything felt like it had paused for our story. That afternoon, I understood for the first time that love is not just a feeling. It is understanding, patience, and being there for each other in those moments. Our school love, which had begun with a single glance, a quiet affection, kept growing slowly. And I knew that the most beautiful memories of life never fade. That's how the school days passed, small moments, silent love, and that strange feeling that can only be understood during school years. As the days went by and we reached the final year of school, the emotions became even more complicated. On one hand, our friendship and love had grown stronger, and on the other hand, that strange conflict still hadn't faded, the one that had begun between loving from afar and the real feelings right in front of me. One day, while sitting in the school library, I suddenly noticed that she was looking for me. She slowly walked over and sat beside me. We both started reading quietly. After a few minutes of silence, she suddenly said, "I think I need to tell you something before our school ends." My heart started beating fast. I said, "What do you want to say?" With a soft smile on her face, she said, "I know you might think everything will end, but I don't want our relationship to be limited to just memories. I want us to truly stay in each other's lives." That day I understood for the first time that love is not just a feeling, it is also a decision. A decision to accept each other, to stay by each other's side, and to adapt to the changes in life. Over the next few weeks, we spent even more time together. On the school playground, in the library, and even during class, we passed small notes to each other. Those notes had no names, only little promises, smiles, and feelings. One day we were sitting on the school veranda talking. She suddenly said, "Do we know what will happen after school?" I stayed quiet for a moment and thought. Then I said, "No, but I want us to find each other no matter what happens." She just smiled and said, "I know we will. We will always find each other." The last day of school came very quickly. Everyone was excited, but there was an unknown emptiness in our hearts. That day was special for us. We both knew it wasn't just an ending, but a new beginning. At the farewell ceremony, we stood together. The teachers encouraged us, we laughed with our friends, but the most important moment of that day was looking into each other's eyes. We knew no words were needed, our eyes were saying everything. That school love, which had begun with silent affection and slowly turned into friendship, had finally moved toward a real relationship. And I knew that this memory would stay with me for a lifetime. Years later, when I walk through the old school corridor, I remember every moment of that quiet love. I remember the smiles, the silent eye contact, and those little notes that brought our hearts closer. We might have been young then, but the love was real. And I know that the school love that began with a simple glance still remains an unforgettable mark in my heart. After school ended, our lives moved in different directions. I enrolled in college in another city, and she went to a different one. At first, it felt like distance would take everything away, but the bond we had built could not be broken by any distance. We used everything: phone calls, messages, video calls. We shared the small moments of every day, how classes went, what songs we listened to, or how we suddenly felt about something. These little conversations made our relationship even deeper, but even with distance, conflicts sometimes appeared. Once I was late replying to a message. She didn't get angry, but after a while she simply said, "I know you're busy, but I think we should always have time for each other." That day I realized that love is not just a feeling, it is also a commitment. It's not enough to say you love someone, it's about understanding, patience, and valuing each other. A year later, we decided to meet during a holiday. The night before, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, was I really prepared? Would I be able to express my feelings properly when I saw her? Finally, that day arrived. We met in a park. I saw her coming from a distance, and the familiar brightness was still in her eyes. I ran forward and we embraced each other. That day we sat and talked for a long time. Our eyes met and no words were necessary. There was only feeling and understanding. In the following years, we became even stronger for each other. Those small school notes, the quiet love, the distant glances, all of it still holds our relationship together. Today, when I remember this story, I understand that our school love was not just a moment. It showed us the path of our lives. It taught us that love means patience, understanding, and standing beside each other. That school love of my life, which began with silent affection, still remains untouched in my heart. It reminds me that love never dies with time. It only grows, deepens, and lights up every moment of life. And so that school love, which began with a quiet glance, has turned into a true relationship that has remained unbroken even after time. For a few days, as I sat thinking about our lives, I suddenly felt that those school days were like a dream. But they weren't a dream. Every moment was real, a part of life. Now I understand that those small incidents, the laughter, the eye contact, the silent love, all of it built the strong foundation of our relationship. During college, we faced some small problems, like spending more time with other people at the same time or replying late to each other's messages. But through every problem, we patiently tried to understand one another. I learned that love is not just about affection, but also about understanding, responsibility, and small compromises. One evening, while walking around the college campus, I suddenly said, "It feels like our school days were the strangest and most beautiful time." She smiled and said, "Yes." And it's because of those days that we understand each other so deeply today. At that moment, I realized that our first school love, which had begun only through our eyes, had become a lifelong lesson. We learned that love is never easy. It is patience, understanding, and being there for each other. Even today, when I look back at the old school, it feels like our story is hidden in that corridor, that veranda, those lunch breaks, and those little notes. I smile and think that life's most beautiful lessons were hidden in that quiet love. Now, as we are together after finishing college and stepping into our professional lives, the memories of those small moments still light up our relationship. I know our school love is not just a story, it is a feeling that has remained untouched by time. When I think about that school love, which began with a quiet glance, slowly turned into friendship, and then became a real relationship, I understand it is a priceless treasure of our lives. It teaches that true love is never easy, but it is always deep, unbreakable, and timeless. In this way, that school love has become a part of my life. It has taught me the value of patience, understanding, and true emotion. And this story, which began with silent affection, still shines in my heart. Toward the end of college, as we became more firmly connected to each other, new responsibilities entered our lives. Job preparations, new cities, new people, everything seemed to test our relationship. But I knew the foundation of that small school love would help us through every challenge. One morning, while walking across the college campus, I suddenly thought that although love seems simple, it is not just about sweet moments. It is about understanding, commitment, and sometimes putting your own interests aside. When she walked beside me, I said, "It feels like our school days were our greatest lesson." She smiled and replied, "Yes, those little moments gave us the ability to understand each other today." Don't think everything will be easy just because we're starting in a new city. We both knew that in this new chapter of life, we had to make our relationship even stronger. We learned that love is not only affection, it is understanding, empathy, and a promise to stand by each other. One evening, we were sitting in the college cafe talking. Suddenly she said, "I never thought that our small school love would become this deep." I nodded and said, "I didn't think so either, but now I understand that love isn't tied to age. It's the strength of feelings that grows stronger with time. Our connection is not only emotion, it is memory, understanding, and standing beside each other." We knew that every new chapter of life would test us, but the foundation of our love would not weaken because of distance or time. In the end, I understand that our first school love, which began with a quiet glance and silent feelings, is still an invaluable part of our lives. It taught us that love is never easy, but true love is always deep, strong, and everlasting. Even today, when I remember the memories of that old school, a smile comes to my face. That corridor, that veranda, those lunch breaks, and the little notes, all of it has become priceless lessons of life. And I know this love has given me strength in every challenge of my life. Our school love is not just a story, it is a feeling that remains untouched even after time. It teaches that true love is never easy, but it is always deep, strong, and everlasting. Years passed. We started our jobs and the busyness of life spread all around us. New cities, new people, new responsibilities, everything seemed to test our relationship. But I knew that the foundation of our relationship, that quiet love from school, would never weaken. One afternoon in the middle of work pressure, I suddenly felt how lucky I was. Lucky because those small school moments, when we quietly looked at each other and understood through our eyes, still light up our lives. I told her on the phone, it feels like we've changed many things, but those school days are still the strongest foundation of our relationship. She smiled and replied, yes. And those days taught us that love is never easy, but proper understanding, patience, and standing by each other make everything stronger. We both knew that love is not just a feeling. It is the effort to understand each other, the willingness to make time for one another, and being there in every moment of life. One evening we were walking in a park. The sound of leaves in the air and distant laughter created a kind of music behind our story. Suddenly she smiled and said, I still remember the first day I saw you. I laughed and said, I remember it too. All the feelings that started then are still untouched in my heart. Our story proves that our first school love is not just a memory. It is a life lesson that taught us patience, understanding, and the mindset of being there for each other. In this way, that school love, which began with silent affection, slowly turned into friendship and then became a true relationship, still shines in my heart. I know our story has changed with time, but the feeling of that first love still exists in every chapter of our lives. And it always reminds me that true love is not bound by time. It is deep, strong, and everlasting. As the years went by, we faced even bigger changes in life. New cities, new jobs, new people, everything brought new tests for our relationship. But I knew the foundation of our love, built on those small school moments, would never shake. One afternoon, I suddenly felt again how fortunate I was. Fortunate because those small glances, the quiet looks in the corridor, and the brief conversations during lunch still brighten our lives. I told her on the phone, it feels like we've changed a lot, but those school days are still the strongest base of our relationship. She smiled and said, yes. And those days taught us that love isn't easy, but understanding, patience, and standing by each other make everything stronger. We both knew that love is more than emotion. It is understanding, making time for each other, and being present in every moment of life. One evening we were walking in a park. The rustling leaves and distant laughter felt like music behind our story. Suddenly she said, I still remember the first day I saw you. I smiled and replied, I remember it too. The feelings that began then are still alive in my heart. Our story proves that our first school love is not just a memory. It is a lesson in life that taught us patience, understanding, and the importance of standing beside each other. Even today, when I look toward that old school corridor, everything feels alive. Those little notes, the silent glances, and the waiting for each other have only made the foundation of our relationship stronger. I know our school love is not just a story, it is a feeling beyond time. It is deep, strong, and everlasting. And I understand that those small moments hold the most beautiful lessons of life. As the years pass, I understand more and more that our school love was not just a chapter, but the most precious lesson of life. Those small moments, the silent glances, waiting for each other, all of it still remains untouched in my heart. One day, in the middle of office pressure, I suddenly felt that every success and every achievement in life would not feel this joyful without her. I texted her, do you know those little days of love still give me strength? She stayed silent for a moment, then wrote, I know, because I remember those times too. And even today, wherever you are, I am by your side. These small words, which began with silent love, still create an invisible bond between us. We know that love is never easy. It is understanding, patience, commitment, and holding on to each other through every test of life. One evening we sat in a park and simply looked at each other. Suddenly she said, I still feel the same as the day I first saw you from a distance. I smiled and said, me too. Those moments of eye contact are still untouched in my heart. No matter how much we grow, that feeling never dies. Our story proves that our first school love is not bound by time. It is life's most important lesson, that love is not just a feeling, but understanding, patience, and the promise of standing beside each other. Even today, when I look toward that old school, it feels as if everything is still alive. That corridor, that veranda, the small smiles during lunch, all of it has made our relationship stronger. We know that time changes and people change, but true love remains forever untouched. And I am certain that our school love, which began with silent affection, still shines in our hearts in the same way. Each year of life has brought us closer. Even as we began our bigger lives together, jobs, new cities, new people, those small school moments continued to guide us. The quiet eye contact, standing in the corridor, the small smiles during lunch, all of it has kept our relationship strong. One evening we were walking in a quiet park. The soft sound of leaves in the air, children playing in the distance, and we were just smiling at each other. Suddenly she laughed and said, "I still remember the day I first saw you." I said, "I remember it too. The feelings that began then are still the same." Our love never dies, it only grows deeper. We both knew that love is not only emotion. It is understanding, patience, standing beside each other, and valuing one another in every moment of life. Those school days taught us that if love is true, it remains unbroken through time, distance, and change. We talked many times about the future, where we would live, what we would do, which city we would choose. But in every decision, that small school love guided our path. One day I suddenly realized that life's greatest lesson is that love is not only joy, but also understanding, sacrifice, and being there for each other. I texted her, "Thank you for always being by my side." She wrote, "Thank you for teaching me true feelings, just like in our school days." Our love is everlasting. Even today, when I remember the old school corridor, a smile comes to my face. Those small glances, little notes, and silent love still remain untouched in my heart. We know that our school love is not just a memory. It is a priceless lesson of life that teaches us love is never easy, but it is deep, strong, and everlasting. As the years have passed, we have learned more understanding, patience, and how to be there for each other. Our relationship has become not just a story of feelings, but a story of friendship, support, and holding onto one another through every rise and fall of life. One afternoon, we were walking along a quiet street in the city. The sound of leaves in the air, distant footsteps of people, and we were simply smiling at each other. Suddenly she said, "Do you remember our school days, when we used to silently look at each other?" I smiled and said, "Yes, I remember. Those days gave us our greatest lesson." Love is not just a feeling, it is understanding, patience, and the promise of standing by each other. We both knew that our first school love was the foundation of our lives. Those little notes, silent eye contact, and lunchtime smiles still keep our relationship strong. One night we were talking on the phone. She suddenly said, "I still remember the first day I saw you from a distance. I understood then that you were special to me." I replied, "I felt the same, and that feeling is still untouched today." No matter how much we grow, that school love keeps our foundation strong. Our story proves that true love is never bound by time. It is understanding, patience, standing beside each other, and supporting one another in every chapter of life. Even today, when I remember the old school corridor, everything feels alive. Those silent glances, little notes, and lunchtime laughter have made our relationship stronger. We know that our school love is not just a memory. It is a priceless lesson of life that teaches us love is never easy, but it is deep, strong, and everlasting. As the years went by, we realized that love is not just emotion. It is the effort to understand each other, to value one another, and to stand together in every moment of life. Our school days taught us that lesson. One afternoon we were sitting in a small cafe in the city. The sunset light was falling outside, and we were simply smiling at each other. Suddenly she said, "Do you know, from the first day until today, the feeling of seeing you has never faded." I smiled and said, "I feel the same." That silent love and those moments of eye contact are still untouched in my heart. No matter how much we grow, those memories keep our foundation strong. We both knew that no matter how life changes, that school love would keep our relationship strong forever. We learned that love is not only joy, it is understanding, patience, and valuing each other. One day we were sitting in a park talking. Suddenly she said, "Do you remember those lunch breaks at school when we just quietly looked at each other?" I laughed and said, "Yes, and those days taught us that love is never easy. But with true understanding and patience, it becomes everlasting." Our story proves that our school love is not just a memory. It is a priceless lesson in life that teaches true love is never bound by time. It is deep, strong, and eternal. Even today, when I think of the old school corridor, it feels as if everything is still alive. Those little glances, quiet smiles, and small notes have made our relationship even stronger. We know that our school love is the most valuable lesson of our lives. It taught us that love means patience, understanding, and standing by each other, and that lesson still lights up our lives. Time passes and we grow older, but the memories of school and that first love stay with us at every step. Those small moments of eye contact, the silence of the corridor, and the laughter during lunch still remain untouched in our hearts. One evening, in the light of the sunset, we were walking in a quiet park in the city. She suddenly said, "I still remember the first day I saw you from a distance. From that moment you were special to me." I smiled and said, "I felt the same." That silent love, the little notes, and waiting for each other still keep our relationship strong. We both knew that love is not only emotion. It is understanding, patience, valuing one another, and standing beside each other in every chapter of life. That small school love taught us this lesson. One day we were talking on the phone. She suddenly said, "I still think those school days are the foundation of our relationship." I replied, "Yes, and that foundation has made our relationship strong today." No matter how time changes, if love is true, it remains unbroken forever. Our story proves that our first school love is not just a memory. It teaches that love is never easy, but through understanding, patience, and standing by each other, it becomes everlasting. Even today, when I remember the old school corridor, everything feels alive. Those little glances, quiet smiles, and small notes have kept our relationship strong. We know that our school love is the most precious lesson of our lives. It teaches that love is not just a feeling, it is understanding, patience, and being there for each other. And that lesson still lights up our lives. As time has moved forward, our relationship has grown even deeper. We understand that our first school love is not just a memory, but the foundation of our lives. Those small moments of eye contact, the silence of the corridor, and the laughter during lunch still remain untouched in our hearts. One evening we were sitting on that old bench in the park. The soft sound of leaves moved through the air and distant footsteps echoed around us. She suddenly said, "I still remember the first day I saw you from a distance. From that moment you were special to me." I smiled and replied, "I felt the same." That silent love, the little notes, and waiting for each other still keep our relationship strong today. We both knew that love is not just a feeling. It is understanding, patience, and being there for each other. That small school love taught us this lesson. One night we were talking on the phone. She suddenly said, "I still remember those days." The small moments from school are the foundation of our relationship today. I answered, "Yes, and that foundation is our strength. True love is not bound by time. It is deep, strong, and everlasting." Our story proves that our first school love is not just a memory. It teaches that love is never easy, but understanding, patience, and standing by each other make it stronger. Even today, when I think about the old school corridor, it feels as if everything is still alive. Those moments of eye contact, quiet smiles, and little notes have strengthened our relationship. We know that our school love is the most valuable lesson of our lives. It teaches that love is not only emotion, it is understanding, patience, and being there for each other. And that lesson still lights up our lives. Years passed and we grew older. New cities, new lives, new people came into our world, but the foundation of our relationship, that small school love, remained unshaken. One afternoon, under the soft sunlight, we were walking in the park. The sound of leaves drifted in the air and distant footsteps surrounded us. She suddenly said, "I still remember the first day I saw you from afar. From then on, you were special to me." I smiled and said, "I felt the same." That silent love, the little notes, and waiting for each other still keep our relationship strong. We both knew that love is not just a feeling. It is understanding, patience, and standing beside each other. That small school love taught us that true love is not bound by time. One night we were talking on the phone. She suddenly said, "I still remember those days. The small moments from school are the foundation of our relationship today." I replied, "Yes, that foundation is our strength. True love is deep, strong, and everlasting." Our story proves that our first school love is not just a memory. It teaches that love is never easy, but understanding, patience, and being there for each other make it stronger. Even today, when I remember the old school corridor, everything feels alive. Those moments of eye contact, quiet smiles, and little notes have strengthened our relationship. Our school love is the most valuable lesson of our lives. It teaches that love is not only emotion, it is understanding, patience, and being there for each other. That lesson still lights up our lives. In this way, the story that began with a small, silent love still shines in my heart today, reminding me that true love is always untouched, deep, and everlasting. As the years pass, I often look back at those school days. It feels like everything began there, a quiet glance, a gentle smile, and waiting for each other. I didn't understand then that those small moments would build the foundation of our relationship today. One evening we sat down on a quiet bench in the park. The soft rustling of leaves filled the air and distant footsteps echoed around us. She smiled and said, "I still remember the first day I saw you from a distance. From that moment you were special to me." I smiled and replied, "I felt the same." Those moments of eye contact, quiet smiles, and little notes still keep our relationship strong. We both knew that love is more than emotion. It is understanding, patience, valuing each other, and standing together through every chapter of life. Our first school love taught us this lesson. One night we were talking on the phone. She suddenly said, "I still remember those days. The small moments from school are the foundation of our relationship today." I answered, "Yes, and that foundation is our strength. True love is not bound by time. It is deep, strong, and everlasting." Our story proves that our first school love is not just a memory. It teaches that love is never easy, but understanding, patience, and standing by each other make it stronger. Even today, when I remember the old school corridor, everything feels alive. Those small glances, quiet smiles, and little notes have made our relationship even stronger. We know that our school love is the most precious lesson of our lives. It teaches that love is not just a feeling, it is understanding, patience, and being there for each other. That lesson still lights up our lives. And so the story that began with a small, silent love still shines in my heart today, reminding me that true love is always untouched, deep, and everlasting. As time moves forward, I keep feeling that our school love was not just a chapter, but the core lesson of life. The small moments, silent eye contact, standing in the corridor, the smiles during lunch, all of it still keeps the foundation of our relationship strong. One afternoon, we were sitting in a quiet park in the city. The light of the sunset fell on our faces, and we were simply smiling at each other. She suddenly said, "I still remember the first day I saw you from a distance. From that moment, you were special to me." I smiled and said, "I felt the same." That silent love, the little notes, and waiting for each other still keep our relationship strong. We both knew that love is not just a feeling. It is understanding, patience, valuing each other, and being there for one another in every moment of life. That small school love taught us this lesson. One night we were talking on the phone. She suddenly said, "I still remember those days. The small moments from school are the foundation of our relationship today." I replied, "Yes, that foundation is our strength." True love is not bound by time, it is deep, strong, and everlasting. Our story proves that our first school love is not just a memory. It teaches that love is never easy, but understanding, patience, and standing by each other make everything stronger. Even today, when I remember the old school corridor, everything feels alive. Those small glances, quiet smiles, and little notes have strengthened our relationship. Our school love is the most valuable lesson of our lives. It teaches that love is not only emotion, it is understanding, patience, and being there for each other. That lesson still lights up our lives. In this way, the story that began with a small, silent love still shines in my heart today. It reminds me that true love is always untouched, deep, and everlasting. Years have passed. From school to college, from college to work, everything has come into our lives. Yet those first moments of eye contact, the silence of the corridor, the smiles during lunch still remain fresh in our hearts. One afternoon in the soft light, we were sitting on a bench in the park. The gentle sound of leaves moved through the air and people were walking in the distance. We sat quietly, just looking at each other. She suddenly said, "It feels like our school days gave us the greatest lesson. Do you think so?" I took a deep breath and said, "Yes, those small moments taught us that love is not only a feeling. It is understanding, patience, and standing by each other." We both stayed silent for a while. It felt like this silence was our deepest understanding. No words were needed, everything could be understood just by looking into each other's eyes. Then she smiled and said, "I still remember the first day I saw you from a distance. Even then I knew you were special to me." I smiled and replied, "I remember it too, and even today that feeling is with us." No matter how much we grow, that school love keeps our foundation strong. We both knew that no matter what challenges life brings, we are beside each other. That school love is not just a memory, it is the strength of our lives. As the sunset faded and the park slowly became quiet, we knew that every chapter of our story had built the foundation of our love today. I realized that the story that began with a small, silent love had not ended, but had entered a new chapter, one that is everlasting, deep, and untouched. In the beginning, I remember those small moments of eye contact from our school days. I did not understand then that those quiet moments would become the greatest lesson of my life. Even after so many years, those memories are still alive in my heart. One evening we were sitting on that familiar bench in the park. The evening light was slowly fading around us. The soft rustling of leaves filled the air and distant footsteps echoed nearby. We sat quietly looking at each other. She smiled and said, "It feels like those school days gave us our greatest lesson. Do you think so?" I took a deep breath, tears filling my eyes, and said, "Yes." Those small moments taught us that love is not only a feeling, it is understanding, patience, and standing by each other. Even today, that feeling keeps the foundation of our lives strong. She held my hand. Even in silence, we could understand each other. No words were needed. It felt like everything could be understood just through our eyes. "I still remember," she said, "from the first time I saw you, you were special to me. And even today, that feeling remains untouched." I smiled and replied, "I feel the same. That first school love, the quiet glances, the little notes, everything has strengthened our relationship. And today, that strength remains unbroken in every chapter of our lives. We both sat quietly for a while. It felt like everything had ended, yet at the same time a new chapter had begun. All of life's conflicts, distances, and challenges seemed to have only made our love deeper today. Sitting on that bench, the last light of the sunset fell on our faces. I suddenly said, no matter what happens, we will always stand by each other. Our love is not bound by time, it is eternal. She smiled and nodded. You're right. That small, silent school love is still shining in our hearts. It never dies, it only grows and becomes deeper. We both knew that our story had ended just one chapter, but the true power of love is everlasting. That first school love, quiet, gentle, and sweet, is still the main foundation of our lives. The air was light, birds were chirping, I held her hand, it felt like everything was right. That small school love has become the greatest lesson of our lives. It teaches that true love is never easy, but it is eternal, deep, and untouched. And in this way, that school love, which began with a silent glance, has turned into the strongest relationship of our lives, still shining in our hearts today. Memories of those school days return to my mind again and again. I suddenly remember how we used to look at each other quietly during lunch and express everything with a small smile. I didn't understand then that those small glances would one day become the greatest lesson of our lives. One afternoon, in the slowly fading sunlight, we were sitting on a quiet bench in the park. The soft sound of leaves filled the air and distant footsteps echoed nearby. We were just looking at each other with no need for words. She suddenly said, I still remember the first day I saw you from a distance. From that moment you were special to me. Do you know that? I smiled and said, I felt the same. That silent eye contact, the little notes, and the smiles during lunch have strengthened our relationship. Even today, that strength remains unbroken in every chapter of our lives. We both sat quietly. It felt like this silence was our greatest understanding. Do you think, she suddenly asked, that the school days we spent were the most beautiful time of our lives? I took a deep breath, tears filling my eyes, and said, yes. Those days taught us that love is never easy, but understanding, patience, and standing by each other make everything stronger. I remember how we sometimes exchanged notes in the library and sometimes quietly watched each other on the playground. Those small moments still strengthen the foundation of our relationship. Then she smiled and said, no matter how time changes, you'll stay by my side, right? I squeezed her hand and said, yes. That first school love is still with us. We will always find each other. Our love is everlasting. The last light of the sunset was slowly fading. The air was light, birds were chirping. We sat quietly, holding hands. It felt like everything was right. That first school love, which began with a silent glance, slowly turned into friendship and then into a true relationship, is still shining in our hearts. It teaches that love is never easy, but it is deep, strong, and everlasting. Our story has ended one chapter, but the power of love is eternal. That school love is the greatest lesson of our lives, guiding us in every moment. The sunset light is fading and the park is slowly becoming quiet. We are sitting on that bench, holding hands, just looking at each other. Everything feels silent, yet our hearts are full of emotion. She smiled and said, do you remember those school days? When we just looked at each other quietly and expressed everything through small notes. I took a deep breath, tears filling my eyes, and said, yes. Those small moments have made our relationship so strong today. That love is still untouched. She nodded and we both remained silent. The silence felt so full, as if it held more understanding than 1,000 words. It felt like that quiet school love was still strengthening the foundation of our lives. No matter how many years pass, she suddenly said, I want us to always stay by each other's side. I held her hand tighter and said, yes. That first school love, the eye contact, the little notes, the smiles during lunch lights up our lives today. Our love is eternal. We both knew that our story had ended one chapter, but the power of love is everlasting. That first school love has become the greatest lesson of our lives. It teaches that love is never easy, but it is deep, strong, and eternal. The last light of the sunset is fading, but that light is still shining in our hearts. We both know that although our story began with silent love, it has grown into an everlasting bond. In this peaceful evening, we sit holding hands, knowing that our school love and those small moments are still the most precious treasure of our lives. And in this way, even if the story ends, the feeling is eternal. This was the story of my school love, a feeling that began quietly, grew with time, became deeper, but never disappeared. Maybe all of us have such stories in our lives that remain in our hearts forever, even after they end. If you also have memories of school or a quiet love story in your life, cherish them. Because these small memories one day become our greatest strength. If you like the story, stay with me. I will share many more emotional stories, stories that may connect with your own life in some way.